There's a difference between stock and broth that's important to note. Broth, which is the stuff you can buy in a can at the supermarket, is made from meat and bones and water. Stock has vegetables added, so it has a much more well-rounded flavor. We're going to start with broth from a can from the supermarket and add some other flavors to make it very well-rounded and rich. So let's get started. We're going to use the same ingredients that you would use in a homemade stock, and we're going to use the same technique. It's just going to be faster. So into our stock pot, we're going to add a bit of onion, and because all this is getting strained out, you don't have to peel the onion. We're going to add the rest of the vegetable ingredients, which would be carrot and celery. We're going to put in a clove of garlic. Because I want the garlic flavor to come out a lot, I'm going to give this a good smash with my heel of my hand. Put that right into the stock pot. Again, you don't have to peel it. We're going to put some black peppercorns in there. And lastly, we're going to put in what's called a bouquet garni. A bouquet garni consists of a bay leaf, a sprig of thyme, and a parsley stem. Do you see what's missing from this parsley stem? There are no leaves. It's just the stem. The stem has more flavor than the leaves. We want the flavor in our stock, so we're just using the stem and saving the leaves for a lovely garnish elsewhere. Because we're going to make Doctor's chicken stock today, we're going to add some chicken wings to our pot. You could use raw chicken bones as well, but don't use chicken bones that have already been cooked, say from a roasted chicken, because most of the flavor from those chicken bones went into the meat that you ate. There's not much flavor left in those for making stock. So now we're going to put canned chicken broth over our stock ingredients. And it's important whether you're starting with canned broth or whether you're starting this process from scratch and putting water, that this element is at room temperature or colder. You would never start this with hot water. We always start it with cold. As you add liquid, take care not to completely fill the stock pot. You want some of the solid elements sticking out the top. As these solid elements cook down in the stock, they will go down under the level. And if you put too much in here, it's just going to take a long time to get the flavor throughout that amount of volume. So now we're going to start the heat, and we want to bring this entire mixture up to a boil. At that point, we're immediately going to lower the heat to a simmer. We want to bring it up fast and then lower it and let it do its thing. Once all your essential ingredients are in the pot, you can distribute them well, but you don't want to stir your stock. Once this is in here, take the spoon, put it on the other side of the kitchen. You don't want to be tempted to stir your stock. The stirring releases the proteins in the meat and the meat bones, and as they get distributed into the stock, they're going to make it cloudy. If you want a beautiful, clear stock, don't stir it. So now we wait for this to come to a boil, then we lower the heat. There are two different kinds of stock, brown stock and white stock, and it's basically dependent on whether or not the foods that went into the stock were browned before they were put into the stock or not browned. A white stock starts with raw vegetables and raw bones. A brown stock starts with vegetables that have been roasted or bones that have been roasted in the oven. Then you continue with the recipe just like I've done here. Now our stock has come to a boil. You can see there are a lot of bubbles. It's time to reduce the heat. What we want to see is just a bubble here and a bubble there. We want to simmer this at about 180 degrees. We don't want a full rolling boil because the agitation from a full rolling boil is going to get those proteins running around in our broth. It's going to make it cloudy. We want it to be beautiful and clear. So we cook it at a lower heat. What we're looking for is just a few bubbles in the pan periodically, just like that. We need to let this cook now for half an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how long you have to wait for your doctored stock. At that point, we'll strain it off. Okay, our stock's been cooking for about an hour. You can see that everything is cooked down beautifully. This is the point where we could go in and skim off any impurities that have floated to the top. There's a little bit here, but if you haven't stirred your stock, you're probably not going to have a lot to skim off. So now our stock is finished. We're just ready to remove the solids. We're going to do that by straining it off. Get a really large measuring cup or another pan. A good idea is to do this in the sink. And now, because we want to be sure to get all that juice out, press down on the solids. And there we go. We have beautiful chicken stock. If you're going to use this right away, that's great. If you're not, you need to cool it quickly. You can store this in the refrigerator for 3 days. If you're going to need to keep it longer than that, a good idea is to freeze it. If you're going to store stock, you could put it back into the pan, and at that point you could boil it because the solids are gone. Boil it to reduce it to half or even a quarter the original volume so you don't have so much space taken up in your freezer. When you thaw it to use it, or when you take it from the refrigerator to use it, always remember to reboil it first, just in case there are any pathogens growing in your stock. That's it. It's very easy to do. Next time you need something with stock in it, you're going to have the most flavorful dish ever.